Now I'm sure you recognise what we're playing here, Candy Crush Saga. Now this has become a massive phenomenon and we've been told by lots of you that you really enjoy playing it. But recently this year there was a follow-up, Candy Crush Saga 2, Farm Heroes Saga, that hopes to follow up on that success. But we've just heard of a new game coming from King, the same developer from Candy Crush, called Bubble Witch Saga 2. So it's a follow-up to their Bubble Witch Saga game, but it brings it up to date and introduces some of the elements that we like in Candy Crush. So to find out more about Bubble Witch Saga 2, but also more about King and how they've risen to success so quickly, we're going to get Jan Wedekind on the phone, their business performance director, so he can tell us firsthand about this new game, but also about King and about Candy Crush and about how they've been quite successful in really popularising this sort of match style game in Android, Apple and on Facebook.
Hi, this is Jan from King.
Hello, would you have some time to talk to us about your new game and about Candy Crush?
Oh yeah, gladly, go ahead.
Super. Well, I mean, perhaps where we should start is some of the history of King and what's brought you to where you are today.
Yeah, that's a great place to start. I mean, King is all about games. We've been doing games for more than 10 years now. We have more than 180 titles that are played in 200 countries all over the world. And Q1 this year we had about 350 million average monthly users. It's bizarre if you think about it. We have more people playing one of our games each month than there are people living in the United States.
How much does Candy Crush make up of those figures? Is that a big portion of those players, or is that just one game amongst many?
It's a big chunk of the players still. I think in the last quarterly results that we published, it dropped now to 68% of that is being made up by Candy Crush. And
there was a follow-up, wasn't there, to Candy Crush at the beginning of the year, called Farm Heroes Saga? Is that right?
Exactly. Farm Heroes Saga launched in January on mobile, so on iPhones, iPads, and Android phones and tablets. It's been around on Facebook for a while. It's actually been the second biggest game on Facebook now for quite a while, and we were very happy with the results on mobile as well. It's doing phenomenally well.
Mm-hmm. Now these games, they're free to play initially, but then obviously at some point you're making some money. How does that happen?
Yeah, they are always free to play. I think if you take a number from Candy Crush, we know that more than 70% of the players who finish the entire game, and we're talking about more than 600 levels by now. It's probably, if you play it through, we're talking about months, if not more than a year of gameplay. More than 70% never pay a cent. So it's what we also call and give ourselves the targets truly free to play. We want the games to be able to be playable without pain. And the only way that we make money is if people want to progress faster in the game. So you have a limited number of lives. As long as you keep winning, you keep your lives. But if you lose, if you fail a level and you cannot pass it, you're losing a life. And these recharge slowly over time. And if you want to shorten that time and basically keep playing straight away, you have, for example, the opportunity to just progress faster and have a small payment. Usually we're talking about 69 pence in the UK. Some of the players take the option, the vast majority never does. And of course, the other option for players is to ask their friends for help. That's also one of the reasons why they are so popular. It's the social game after all, so rather than paying, you can also just ask a friend, hey, send me an additional life, and keep playing.
Mm-hmm. That's a nice idea. I like that, sending your friends some lives. Is there an upper limit to how much you can spend in those in-app purchases?
No, there is no upper limit. We are definitely looking into how we can help players if we see something outrageous. It's like basically we see something that we find is not normal usage of the game. We're trying to inform players on that. We take that with a lot of care. We don't want any kind of addiction behavior or any kind of exploitation.
In that market, who do you see as your sort of most direct competitor? Is it sort of the Angry Birds and those type of games?
Usually in games, what we always say, you never know. The next biggest competitor could be the one in the garage that is just starting and you don't know. I mean, I don't know if you heard about this phenomenon called Flappy Bird that was going around the planet. It is impossible to foresee what's going to be the next big thing. before Candy Crush, probably the biggest game and most well-known was Angry Birds, right? And it's still incredibly large and successful franchise. Who knows what's going to be the next? So far, we are focused on just delivering the best games that we know we can do, and we hope that people will still love playing them over the next years.
And another trend that seems to be growing is the sort of crossover between these apps and physical toys, or selling content via a physical toy. Is that something that King have looked at or considered?
Well, the way we look at markets and platforms is always, if our players are there and they want to play this, we start looking at it. But we never pretend to be necessarily the first forerunner of any new trend. When we started doing games for Facebook in 2009, it was already fairly late in the game. So a lot of players in the market said that this is way too late. This is a very saturated market. You won't make it there. People are tired of playing on Facebook. And it turns out that we were very successful on Facebook. We went on mobile only at the end of 2012, really, which was already, the App Store was already around for 3 or 4 years. And again, it was already a very competitive field, and still we managed to be successful because we were able to offer people what they want, which is a very simple, a great gameplay that they can play anytime, anywhere they want. Doesn't matter if you play on your iPhone, if tomorrow you want to play on Facebook, you keep playing the same game. And if you come home and sit on the couch, you want to play it on an iPad, it's still the same game, it's the same progression. And I think that whole value offer was something very unique for players and helped us a lot to grow.
So looking at some of those competitors you were talking about, might we see a Flappy Bird Saga type game from King at some point?
Oh no, I don't think so. No. There's for sure it's not on the roadmap, that I can tell you. No, it's just an example of you never know what kind of mechanics. And there's a kind of X factor towards all these runaway hits, so to speak. And we'd be the first to admit that this is the same for Candy Crush. I don't think that Farm Hero Saga or now Bucharest Saga 2, the game we are about to launch very soon, I don't think they are fundamentally better or worse games. I don't think that Candy Crush Saga is, as a game in and of itself, a game that is so much better that it would explain this phenomenal global phenomenon that it really become, almost like pop culture phenomenon that it has become. There's a kind of X factor, kind of, we say, was all the stars were aligned, it was the right moment, it was something new in that moment, and hit the right sweet spot. And at some point it just hits, it becomes a phenomenon with its own life. And that's something you can never steer or control. So we don't know, maybe if we are lucky, we get another one like this in the future. We're working very hard to increase our chances for that. Maybe it's somebody else who has the next Candy Crush next year. We need to work even harder.
And that brings us on to, as you mentioned, Bubble Witch's Saga 2, which seems like it's unlikely to hit the sort of zeitgeist, it being a follow-up for a very well-known style of game, rather than being sort of an original idea.
Yeah, but it's an interesting fact. I mean, I've been talking to a developer before, and if you think about, for example, when the iPhone was introduced, I remember having a lot of discussions with friends who are also very, very techy, so to speak, and we're saying, hey, but there's nothing new. The touchscreen has been around for 10 years. I have internet on my phone already. Look, I have my email on my phone already. There is absolutely nothing new here. But it turned out that it revolutionized completely the way that we look at phones and smartphones in particular. So I think it's often too simplistic to just look at one core element of it and think there's nothing new here. When we look at casual games, what we want is something that is also, that has a touch of familiarity to it. So you don't, as a casual player, and I look at that of myself because I'm testing a lot of games, and I download a game and it takes me 10 minutes to even get to the point that I get what the purpose of this game is about. I usually don't have the patience, nor do I have the time to do that. So the first entry point should be something that you can get in less than a minute and you know how to play. From then on, what we do, and that's one of the things that we've been trying to do with Bucharest Saga 2, is do a lot of variations and innovation in the gameplay as you move along. There's no way that you can create 500 levels in the game if you don't have variation in the gameplay. People will get bored after 20 levels if you don't offer them something new and something new to discover with each new episode that we're releasing every 2 weeks. And I think the success shows that this was working very well for us. People are still highly engaged to those games. It doesn't matter if you take even Bucharest Saga 1, which we don't discontinue, which we'll keep servicing and adding new levels. It's 3 years old and we still add new mechanics to this game and new variations of gameplay. I think that's where most of the innovation and really the love and care and handicraft goes into the game.
And is there a particular hook for Bubble Witch Saga 2 that, you know, you'd say play this game because it's got this aspect to it that you really have to experience?
I think it's by far the best bubble shooter that I've ever played. If you like the kind of shooter mechanics, bubble shooter mechanics, you won't find another game that has so much variety in the gameplay. We're starting with 3 different games. The boosters look fantastic. They're very fun to play. I just think it's the best bubble shooter out there by far. You asked before about why do a sequel, and that's a very good question. We debated that for a long time also internally, and I think, and when we put the game onto mobile, we realized that it's impossible to play it in an upstanding mode, in a portrait mode. And that basically hinders you from playing with one hand. That's a severe factor for something that you want to be able to play wherever you are. It doesn't matter if you're in the bus or in the tube on your way to work, and you have to hold on with one hand, but you still want to play the game. That's impossible if you need to use 2 hands in landscape mode. There, so a lot of care went into this. I think in terms of the gameplay, the other part that's super important, that the original game only had one core gameplay mechanic, so to speak. So you basically have to clear the top row of the bubbles to pass the level. And of course we carry this over into the sequel, but at the same time adding new fundamental game modes, similar to for example, the jelly mode in Candy Crush, which is a different way of playing.
Is there any plans to take the King games to other platforms? You've talked a lot about mobile and Facebook. How about other handheld, like the 3DS or the Vita, or even console platforms? Is that a possibility in the future?
There's always possibilities. We will go where our players are, where people want to play our games. When that happens, it depends on what the market conditions are, and there's nothing to announce at this point in time, but everything is possible. It really just depends if there's an amount of people that really wants to play this type of games on that device.
Mm-hmm. And as I understand it, King recently floated on the stock market, and so became a sort of a publicly owned company with shareholders. Does that change the ethos or what you're trying to do? Because now, you know, you're answerable to those shareholders to return a profit. Does that change things?
No, not at all. Actually, I think it's amazing to see. This company has not been around for a year and a half. We're not a very short-lived startup with a quick exit strategy. Everybody is still here. It's the same as before. It has not changed or impacted the way I work or live, or the way the teams work or live in any way. We are still focused here in the studio in Barcelona. We're just focused on doing the best game possible, launching the best possible Bubble Witch Saga 2, launching Diamond Digger Saga on mobile very soon as well.
So we'll look forward to playing Bubble Witch Saga 2. And when's that out? It's quite soon, isn't it?
As soon as it's ready.
But this year?
Yes.
And as always, on multiple platforms, including Facebook and smartphones and tablets.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks for your time.